Hello, welcome to my video blog where we sit at the intersection of faith, LGBT, and Christian communities. Today I want to talk to you about why I think homosexuality exists if it is not a sin. And the kind of big theme I want to get at is what is futility, what is hope, and go from there. The Bible writes this about why things are kind of the way they are. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us. For creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. So far, it's kind of like talking about creation's purpose and such. For creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it in hope. So, what is futility? It's pointlessness and uselessness. It's not being able to arrive at a hope. So, it's a misguided hope will end up in futility. And I don't think I really understood futility until I started getting more involved in a lot of hobbies. I have these long-term hobbies like writing, where you add a little bit each time. I have a hobby of strength training where you add a little bit of weight each time. And these are really long-term. And futility is when something comes about that cuts it short. And I think how creation was subjected to futility was death. Because people have these dreams and they, like, if you go to Noah, he built a whole ark over several, or at least 100 years. It was huge. And so I think what happens is ambitions can grow larger and larger until they can't be achieved. And the limit to their achievement is death or the end of life. And I tried to think what heaven would look like where there is no futility and you could work on a project for several hundred years to glorify God with and it still not be done. So that's an interesting thought. But let's get around to futility as it exists on earth. One of the big ways it exists is death. The other way is that people try and get around futility is through legacy, where they have a legacy that they try and maintain, and that's usually it can look different ways for different people. It can be kind of a very like I'm going to just pass on my culture and my ideas, and that's all right. But it kind of presupposes that things are going to be okay. And for the longest time, civilizations have not been very stable as they are, at least in the modern day. And so the idea of legacy was tied to having kids and having them pass on your values. And in the Roman world, it was not a bad idea for the apple not to fall far from the tree. So to speak. So I think one of the things that exists within this futility is people have hopes and dreams for family and such, and they can't always achieve it by biological means. So I think creation was subjected to futility when your natural sexual desires do not line up with your hopes and dreams. And I think for some people that's family. Now, it is true that we can circumvent this in various ways through adoption, and that's not all bad either. But on a more practical level, I think the existence of LGBTism, as I don't believe it's a sin, exists because futility exists. And like people have these dreams that involve their children, or having children and having them kind of carry on where you left off. So I kind of want to come full circle. For the Christian's life, what does this kind of futility, what has it looked like for me? It has taught me how to struggle in ways that I don't think I would have if I was not, I guess, bisexual or mostly gay, but that's a whole nother story. Labels, they're not helpful. But anyway, I would not have had the same kind of struggles, and I would not have learned from them. I would not have the courage that I do now. I would not have the desire to be as tough as nails at sometimes with people. And I don't think I would have the same amount of self-control, which I am now applying to my various hobbies and goals. So I would be a very different person. Even though I became a person that I did not originally think I would, that's all right. But kind of getting back to this verse, for creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. I guess for the LGBT, they definitely get the sense that this world they weren't necessarily made for this world in the same way that, or society, they don't have that privilege. So I think there's a large opportunity for them to pursue spirituality in a lot of different ways. And historically, this has been the case. They have always been like the shamans, the priests, and whether in Christianity or outside of it, they've pursued the arts. All these things that are great that maybe they would not have pursued if they had children. And so, like, you look at artists and people who deal with homosexuality are overrepresented by a large degree with them. And it's kind of hard to figure out why that may be, but I think it comes down to they have taken their creative energies and moved them towards improving the world in such a way that does not always involve biological children. Now it can, and I do believe that LGBT people can make great parents, and that it's not something that really depends on the gender, even though there is a lot of gendering that goes on in our society that's not always helpful for those people. Because I'm not a complementarian, but sometimes our society has certain ways of teaching people what it is to be a male or female, and it's very subtle, and it doesn't necessarily serve anyone. But so for me, I want to go full circle. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. Not only creation, but ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit grown inwardly, while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. So, redemption is when you give worth to something that did not have it. So when we're dead, our bodies have no worth. They have no movement. And I think when we're raised with Christ, we are given worth, and we're not given futility anymore. We're given hope and industry. So I think heaven will be a very interesting place. Like, there will still be work for us to do, and that's not a bad thing. And in heaven, we're not going to be married or given to marriage. And so this whole LGBT, how you relate to people, it's going to be very different. I think we're going to know everyone's business, so there's going to be a level of intimacy that we don't have on earth. And in some ways, I think that's going to be more real than what we deal with. I'll leave you with that.